Hi, and thanks for joining me again today. Today we graduate to James chapter 5. Yahoo! We've been on James chapter 4 for a little while now, but really we see that the thread from James chapter 4 about, and 3, end of chapter 3, about earthly wisdom and godly wisdom, that is a main game player through chapter 4 and as well part of chapter 5. And so let me read chapter 5, because we was for a few days there about where the wars and fights come from, and strife and those sorts of things. But now the Spirit of God had moved upon Apostle James to correct another area in the Christian church that really needed correcting because it was causing division. And when I read it, I mean, it explains itself. And so in verse 1 of James chapter 5, it reads, "Come now, you rich, weep and howl for your miseries that are coming upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver are corroded, and their corrosion will be a witness against you, and will eat your flesh like fire. You have heaped up treasure in the last days. Indeed, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, cry out, and the cries of the reapers have reached the ears of the Lord of the Sabbath. And so they have lived on the earth in pleasure and luxury. You have fattened yourself and your hearts as in the day of slaughter. You have condemned, you have murdered the just. He does not resist you." Now, this here is not saying that God is against people who are wealthy, that are successful in business. God is not speaking about that. In fact, the scriptures encourage people that through the wisdom of God that they gain riches and wealth. And that is a good thing. I think there's a gift on people's lives when they do so according to God's will. This is speaking about a different category of people altogether. And I think verse 4 identifies the character of people and the characteristics. It says here, "Indeed, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, cry out, and the cries of the reapers have reached the ears of the Lord of the Sabbath." So, here James is bringing correction to something that was happening in that day, and I do believe it still happens to this day, unfortunately, but it does. And people, they're out there that they increase in riches unjustly. And again we see this thread of the wisdom of the world, which is earthly, it's sensual, it's demonic, it's about self, it's about how much more I can get. You see, a person who operates in the wisdom of God cares about people, because that wisdom that comes from above comes from God himself. And God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever would believe in him would not perish but have everlasting life. And so people matter a lot to God. And so therefore God's wisdom, he sent the greatest sacrifice, paid the heaviest price for the salvation of humanity. But a person who operates in earthly wisdom, which is earthly, sensual, and demonic, do not care about people. They don't see people as equals. They see people as an opportunity for self-gain. And again, where do wars and strife and fights come from? And other areas how people will try and use others for self-gain and become very hard, abrupt, rude, boastful, and their relationships are usually very toxic. And so, we're going to continue tomorrow along these lines again, but again, it's speaking about two different kinds of wisdom, two different kinds of agendas. The agenda of God is for all people to be blessed. The agenda of this rich person it's speaking about that just has a heart for self, that's what it's about, and will step on anybody's toes, will climb any ladder and pull the person down above them to get to where they want to go. They don't care about families, they don't care about people, they don't care about relationships. As far as they're concerned, that friendships and relationships are disposable. As soon as you've consumed them, you go and get some more, and so on. And that is not the wisdom of God. That is what James is speaking about here. And he's saying that all of this wisdom, all of this riches, these riches that you have gained are going to testify against you in the day of judgment. Amen. So join me tomorrow. We're going to continue along these lines, and what an interesting subject it is. So until then, be blessed. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.